Very good afternoon. Welcome to Planet FM 87.6. Welcome to the program The All-Rounder. I'm your host Ismail Abbasi, and today the guest that I have is somebody that my friend circle, we have a lot of contradictions, we have a lot of conflicts and debates about different personalities. Whenever we talked about the intelligentsia of Pakistan, but one name that we all agree on is Usman Qazi Saab. And one of my friend last night in that group, one of our friend in that group, somebody who is very measured with his words, somebody who doesn't exaggerate much. He came up with a couple of adjectives when I shared the poster of this program with them, and he said that Usman Qazi Saab is an unadulterated gem of a person, and another one said that he is an unalloyed rare gem of a person. And I can't agree more with both the statements. Usman Saab, welcome to our show.
Thank you so much, and I am deeply grateful for somewhat undeserved praise that your friends have for me. I'm grateful nevertheless. Thank you for inviting.
We have been following Usman Saab. We have been Usman Saab's Facebook friend and followers, and we have been following certain podcasts, certain programs where Usman Saab appear. The point of inviting Usman Saab today to our show is that this is a topic that's very close to my heart, and when I was thinking about a guest to be invited for this show, one name that rang in my ears, and also my friends who I consult whenever I'm planning, they suggested that Usman Saab is the right guy. The reason that Usman Saab has worked with the United Nations, he has worked as an international crisis management expert in almost 35 countries. Usman Saab is also currently working with Afghan government. Usman Saab will briefly talk about that. What are you currently doing, and if you can provide us with a gist of your past experiences.
Thank you so much for initiating this dialogue on a topic which I believe is very important and very close to my heart as well. I must provide a little correction. I do not work with the Afghan government because as such there is no formal accepted recognized government in Afghanistan at the moment. I am working with the United Nations as a consultant, and in the past I have been a staff member of the United Nations in various crisis countries, be those crises induced by natural hazards or through conflicts. So most recently, before Afghanistan, I was working for a few years in Syrian Arab Republic. Prior to that, I worked in Tajikistan, and I worked in countries, when I mention their name, people actually ask whether that country actually exists, such as Vanuatu, for instance, Tonga in South Pacific. So that's briefly what I do. Presently, I'm working in the northeast of Afghanistan on a program that is aimed towards providing durable solutions against displacement, and that covers people who have been pushed into Afghanistan by the neighboring countries, as well as people who have been chronically or recently internally displaced, and it also covers the people who did not move. So it's an integrated program which is aimed at deepening the coverage of the essential services to all the people in that displacement affected community, expanded options for livelihoods, and all this while strengthening the social fabric and inter and intra-community harmony.
Thank you so very much, Usman Saab, for such an insightful discussion about your job and all. Usman Saab, can we have an idea about what is an international crisis management expert, because we don't get to hear this term much.
Well, it's a sort of heavy jargon, and like most of the work of United Nations and other developmental agencies, it's replete with jargons. Essentially, wherever a crisis happens, usually the kinds of response by the international community and the national government, and most importantly by the affected people themselves, flows through two streams, if you like. So one is called humanitarian work. Humanitarian work primarily aims at saving lives, preventing secondary disasters, and in parallel we also start laying the foundations for sustainable, resilient recovery from that crisis.
Okay.
So I've mostly worked in providing the latter kind of assistance to various countries and communities, which is primarily aimed less at saving lives, because there are other people with the stronger mandate and better capacities than I do for that purpose, but it's more about restoring lives and livelihoods. That's what I do.
Fair enough. Usman sir, we titled today's show as Immigrants, Nation States and Related Anxieties. So I would like us to delve into these three separately, one by one. So first of all, I would like you to talk about immigrants, and if I ask in very simple, in very plain terms for our all audiences, what are immigrants?
Right. I would say that the word immigrant in its present connotations is a relatively recent concoction, and it's closely linked with the second word that you use in the title, which is the nation state.
Okay.
So in the Paleolithic times or Neolithic times, nobody was displaced in the world, because wherever one went, that was one's home. Right?
Fair enough.
And later on, human beings started drawing these lines on the maps, dividing the nature into areas of political influence, kind of laying claims to the benefits of those areas.
So was it a 20th century phenomenon, or did it exist before 20th century as well?
Slightly prior to that. I think most of the nation state related constructs that we see in today's world are a follow-up of the Westphalian Agreement, as we call it. It's from 19th century, when powers in Europe basically made a sort of understanding among themselves about the national boundaries. So that's where the concept of a nation state was first born, and the word immigrant. So it's basically what's called otherization in philosophy, which is you declare somebody as different from you in one way or the other. The best caricature of this otherization, I believe, is Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels, where Belfesco and that other state and Lilliput, they fight on a very trivial matter on which side the egg should be broken from. So similarly, immigrant is a relative term, and it's used for people who are believed to be others and who are coming into my territory, whichever way you define it. But immigration obviously is, as I mentioned earlier, I alluded, is not a new phenomenon. It's been happening since the dawn of humanity in this on this planet, and people would move around in search of livelihoods and for survival, or under various kinds of stresses.
Fair enough. Usman sir, you have worked with UN in different capacities. How does UN define immigration?
So immigration,
immigrants,
right? So in the UN parlance, immigration is a process which involves a legally accepted relocation from one place to the other.
Okay.
Which is different from being a refugee or a displaced person. So immigration, for example, immigrant, it denotes that the person who is moving is doing it willingly, and the place which is accepting him or her is also doing it willingly and is providing some sort of legal entitlements to that person as an equal. So the moment you become an immigrant, a legal immigrant, you stop being the other.
Fair enough.
Right.
Fair enough. So can you shed light on a few instances of mass immigration in the last 100 years of human history?
In terms of mass movements of human beings, which can be labeled as immigration, I think the most stark examples are the Americas, both North and the South American continents,
Mm-hmm.
as well as Australia.
Mm-hmm.
So these have been European people, Spanish, English, Scottish, Germans, all sorts of origins, sometimes some Asians as well, who have basically emigrated to those countries
Okay.
and have settled down there and made it their home.
Fair enough.
In the 20th century, perhaps the largest movement of masses was at the time of partition of the subcontinent and the birth of Pakistan,
Okay.
where millions of people were forcibly displaced from one place, one side of the newly drawn border to the other. So, but as I mentioned earlier, those were not refugees. Those were people who were changing their abode voluntarily or otherwise to live in a new country from both sides of the borders. So they were sort of opting for a different kind of citizenship, a different
And there
label.
was a legal framework
Precisely.
was
Yes.
there, but I guess when we talk about people who are migrating,
Right.
who are refugees in particular, they don't end up having a legal framework to which they look up to.
Depends on the country.
Fair enough.
So the UN has a convention on the rights of refugees.
Fair enough.
Many countries have signed it,
Mm-hmm.
and when they sign it, they basically pledge on giving certain rights, privileges, and entitlements to the refugees.
Fair enough.
Yes.
We'll come to that later.
Sure.
I have that listed in my questions as well.
Sure.
But now I would like to move ahead. We
Hmm.
talked about immigrants to the second part, and that you said that's very closely related to immigrants. That's a nation state.
Nation state.
Can you briefly define a nation state for our audiences?
So nation state again is a social construct and rather arbitrarily defined. So when the concept was born, it was loosely constructed around a shared lineage, language, and sometimes religious alignment.
Okay.
That's how it was born in Europe. But later on, it's essentially a product, in my view, of political economy of a particular region.
Fair.
Now we talk of, for example, a social contract among the citizens of a country. Take any country that claims to be democracy. And over there, the underlying premises that people living in that country have come together under a voluntary social contract. In our country, that is the Constitution of Pakistan 1973, under which various federating units and by implication the inhabitants of those federating units agreed to come together and form a country. So it's a matter of bilateral rights and responsibilities that define a nation state and its inhabitants.
Fair enough. Usman sahab, you previously mentioned that prior to the concept of nation states, people moved from one place to another, but they were not refugees.
Correct.
They just got settled there. So, do we understand from this that when we talk about nation states, immigrants do not fit into the design of a nation state?
Immigrants do fit, as I said,
Okay. Refugees don't?
and refugees don't. Because by labeling someone a refugee, there's an implicit understanding that these people are there temporarily
Okay.
and they'll move back to where they came from.
Okay.
So word refugee means they are here only to take refuge,
Okay.
not to settle down.
Fair enough.
Right?
But then we move to another question. Is there a time frame? You said that UN has charters and there are obviously granted rights to certain refugees. That if a refugee ends up spending a significant amount of time in a country, then that refugee is entitled to be termed as an immigrant rather than a refugee.
So these are two different aspects in my view.
Okay.
One is what qualifies one as a refugee,
Okay.
and when he or she is expected to return.
Okay.
So there is no fixed time frame attached to
fair
that
enough.
for a refugee, and the convention states that the conditions that forced a person to take refuge in another country are a determinant on when that person can or should return. So once those threatening conditions are gone, those stresses are gone, then the person can voluntarily return to the place of origin or choice.
Fair enough.
So that's about the refugees.
Yes.
Now, the other part of your question is related to the citizenship laws of the hosting country.
Ji.
So certain hosting countries, they grant the right of citizenship to the people who came as refugees, or at least their children who were born on that soil. And we have examples both in Europe, in North America, South America, where people went as refugees, and when their children were born, they were granted the rights of being naturalized citizens, and sometimes even the first generation refugees too.
Fair enough. Usman sir, you talked about Europe, North America, South America. Can we have tangible examples of the countries that are working the other way around, that are found in somewhat terms they are prejudiced against allowing people to be their citizens?
Well, there are certain countries, as I said, first of all, again, remember I mentioned the dichotomy of your question, so that dichotomy will apply here as well.
Fair enough.
So first is about immigration. There are certain countries who, because of some deep, perhaps not entirely unfounded anxieties and fears, do not encourage immigration.
Fair enough.
Such as the Gulf Cooperation countries, most Arab countries in the Gulf region do not encourage immigration into them. That's very rare that they grant citizenship to outsiders. For example, the most salient example is M.F. Hussain, the famous Indian Muslim painter, who felt threatened in his country, and then a Gulf state granted him citizenship. But those examples are rare and few. There are other countries who are more open to immigration, such as Canada, for example, such as since 1973 Australia and New Zealand, and the US, for instance.
Have you traced the reasons behind these fears not allowing people, for example, if we talk about the Gulf states, they won't be offering citizenship even to a Muslim brethren of theirs. So that very concept of having a Muslim ummah, or if you share certain, let's suppose, ideas on the basis of religion, in fact. So what is it that prompts them not to at least open their borders and allow these people who are struggling, if not like from Pakistan, but if there are certain countries who are on their borders and they're struggling, why are they not allowing them to be part of their country?
First of all, allow me to say, please, and that's my personal opinion, that the Muslim Ummah as a political construct is a relatively nascent phenomenon.
Okay.
This does not exist in the original sources of Islam or throughout its history or in the work of the Muslim jurists.
Fair enough.
This is essentially a late 19th, mid 20th century phenomenon. And it has its own reasons for coming into being, the pressure of colonization and the Cold War and all that. Having said that, the anxieties of, for example, the Gulf Cooperation Council countries are, I guess, based on maybe two main factors. One is these are sparsely populated countries.
Okay.
And they are afraid that they will be drowned by immigrants, overwhelmed, and then their own way of life and their identity as, for example, a citizen of Fujairah or Al-Quwain or Kuwait or any country will be threatened and will disappear.
Okay.
And perhaps it's not entirely unfounded.
So do we see that these threats evolve because of their geopolitics, or there are inherent biases to them?
I think it's a combination of many factors, including the history, and also geopolitics, but maybe more so in terms of economics. So the prosperity of the Gulf states, as we know, is quite fragile because it's mostly dependent on non-renewable natural resources such as oil.
Okay.
So as long as the oil is there, many of these countries, some are trying to diversify indeed, but mostly they are dependent on a non-renewable natural resource.
Fair enough.
and a mass influx of people is viewed as people coming as economic migrants. So some of these countries are very liberal in providing visas, right to work, work permits, etc. But as I said, there's implicit that they will go back eventually when they are not needed.
Okay, fair enough. Usman sir, moving ahead, when we talk about countries that are liberal towards immigration, that are open towards immigration, as we talked about certain countries of Europe, we talked about South America, North America, do we have examples of people who have contributed significantly to the country of their adoption?
Right. Usually the pattern is that the first generation migrants have some roots, some active connection with their place of origin.
Fair enough.
And they remit money and they help the relatives back home. But in a couple of generations, the kids don't feel a strong connection to the place where their parents or grandparents came from. So that economic benefit, if you like, becomes less and less significant over generations. Nevertheless, there are other ways in which the second or the third generation migrants contribute to the places of origin, such as I know for a fact that some British Pakistanis, they operate a scholarship for less privileged Pakistani people, young people, boys and girls, to study in highly prestigious institutions of UK.
Okay, so that's serving back to your or country of origin. But do we have examples of people who have contributed to the economy, let's suppose, of the adopted country?
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, like the US, Brazil, Canada, Australia, they basically are where they are economically and socially because of immigration. Had the immigration not been there, it won't be the same. There are examples. You can have a panel data comparison. Papua New Guinea is next door to Australia, which is very rich in natural resources. It's a green place, abundance of water, arable land, as compared to Australia, which is essentially a desert. But if you look at the human development indicators of both countries, you can clearly see a stark difference. But there's a cost to it as well. Because the Aboriginal people of Australia and New Zealand, they suffered massively. I mean, it's nothing short of a genocide that happened against those people. So it's a very difficult trade-off, right? True. On what you want or can compromise on, and what you can't. Certain interesting examples are, for example, UK. So as you notice that the previous Prime Minister of UK was the son of immigrants. The Mayor of London himself is an immigrant. Yeah. So it's become less about religion or race. It's more about adopting to a certain way of life.
Fair enough.
The local values that, for example, the Britain espouses and is proud of. So if Rishi Sunak or Sadiq Khan or Baroness Warsi are found aligned with promoting and strengthening the British way of life, whatever that means, and they are accepted as the British, despite the difference in religion, race, original language, etc.
So now we move to the related anxieties part of our discussion and the topic, and we'll obviously come back to our country and our part of the world. Why can't we take a leaf out of these books?
I must say that as a refugee-friendly country or immigration-friendly country, we've had a very interesting past.
Okay.
Many people may not be aware that Pakistan gave diplomatic passports to the Algerian, Tunisian, and Moroccan freedom fighters during 1950s and 60s.
Okay.
Ahmad bin Billah, the founding father of Algeria.
Okay.
Habibur Raqiba, the foremost freedom fighter of Tunisia at that time. They traveled on Pakistani passports because there was a global warrant issued by France against them.
Okay.
For being freedom fighters termed terrorists.
Okay.
So, and lots of Palestinians traveled on Pakistani travel documents in the past.
Okay.
So, and we accepted the largest number of refugees at one time in the world from Afghanistan, millions of them, and we hosted them. Many people are not aware that Pakistan accepted less than 100 but more than 50 Palestinian families in 1948 after the Nakaba.
Okay.
And they are Pakistanis now. Their children speak Urdu. They actually assimilated.
Fine.
So we don't need to take a leaf from somebody else's book. We've had
Our past.
we have had a
We can take the leaf out of our own past.
we can take pride in some leaves from our past as well.
Fair enough. So what has changed when we talk about another country from where we had almost 4 big mass migrations from 1979, 1996, 2001, 2021. You know what am I talking about?
Yes.
It's been like 50 years, 60 years.
Yep.
Those people are living in your country. You hosted them.
Yes.
They acknowledge it.
Correct.
But I had trainees, I had students from Afghanistan, worked with them, and I have, when I was, framing this program, I got their questions. One of my students wants to know Ziauddin. He's a pharmacist, studied in Pakistan, born in Pakistan. He says that if someone's grandfather migrated to Pakistan decades ago, why are they still treated as a foreigner? Why can't they obtain nationality by birth despite being born and raised in this country?
As I said, I think that's a very valid question, and I would like to say at the outset that I've lived in a refugee camp, Afghan refugee camp, with my father.
Okay.
Back in 1979 for a few months.
Okay.
It was among the first ever refugee camps established in Pakistan in a place called Surkhab in Pshin district.
Fair enough.
And I've been interacting with my Afghan brothers and sisters ever since. And I believe that the overwhelming majority, if not all of them, are very active contributors to our economy here.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
And I think that if any effort is made at scientifically collecting data, I think the contribution of Afghan refugees to our economy, our society, has been immense. And I think this country owes it big time to the Afghan brothers and sisters.
Fair enough. Well, that's a very pertinent point. Please carry on.
Yes.
You want to say something? Yeah.
Why a person born here, actually somebody whose father or grandfather was born here, is not extended nationality in this country? I'm in no position to explain why, because this is a matter to be decided by the state of Pakistan.
Fair enough.
And as I said, there are laws in this country that govern how citizenship is awarded to people.
Fair enough.
In my personal view, there are ambiguities there, therefore it's used arbitrarily.
Fair enough.
For example, let alone the Afghan brothers and sisters, if a Pakistani man marries a foreign woman, she becomes entitled to
Yes.
citizenship.
Yes.
Reverse is not the case.
Yes.
So if a Pakistani woman marries a foreign male,
Yes.
he doesn't become automatically entitled to Pakistani
But is it true
citizenship.
for the Afghans as well? Because what the data that I've gathered, that if a Pakistani man marries an Afghan lady, will that lady become Pakistani citizen?
So that's what I was coming to.
Yes.
But this is actually applied rather arbitrarily,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
I have examples in my own family.
Fair enough.
My maternal grandfather was a colonial administrator in East Africa. And as was the custom in those days, he married a woman of Omani origin there as well.
Fair enough.
right? The co-wife of my maternal grandmother. So his children from the Omani origin wife are all foreigners. They are either Kenyan citizens now.
Okay.
He's buried there, by the way,
Fair
in
enough.
Mombasa, right?
Fair enough.
So a cousin from my Omani side of African side of the family,
Yes.
a male cousin, he married a female cousin of my Pakistani side of the family. But despite various efforts, he was not granted Pakistani citizenship.
Okay.
So the law is applied arbitrarily. And it's, I think, applied particularly arbitrarily when it comes to the Afghan people.
It does.
Yes.
So, when we talk about Afghans, you worked with UN. There are these two types of cards. One is called the POR card, the other is called the ACC card. As far as I know from my little knowledge and research, that the POR card is basically granted with Pakistan, with the consent of Pakistan's government as well as UNCHR. So one question that arises, and many Afghans come up with, that when the granting institution or the granting body of a card is Pakistan itself, and when we talk about the Pakistanis, CNIC, that is also granted by the same body. So when the granting bodies of the cards are the same, why is the treatment not the same?
Because the entitlement attached to each of these documents is different.
Okay.
The cards, the document issued to the refugees by government of Pakistan, basically just endorses that they have a quasi-legal status
Fair enough.
living in this country.
Fair enough.
It's a sort of registration.
Okay.
It doesn't go beyond it. It doesn't grant them any rights whatsoever. The only right perhaps it grants them is of not being arrested for being an illegal immigrant.
Okay.
That's the only protection that this card
Okay.
entitles them to. Whereas the CNIC, as in theory at least, entitles you to a lot of things. All the services that the government of Pakistan offers to its citizens, you can reclaim them based on holding a CNIC, a valid one.
So, Usman sir, when UN is somehow, or UNCHR is somehow a party to that agreement, then Afghan refugees also ask that why is it not, if it is actually committed in, decreasing the suffering of refugees or helping them, why is it not ensuring what we talked about, the right to, a police complaint, right to defend themselves, right to education, for that matter. So an Afghan is allowed to study in Pakistan schools, even colleges. But when it comes to university, you must be aware of the fact that in each discipline, there can only be one
Yes,
Afghan.
there's a quota.
There's a quota of one
Yes.
individual. And then if we talk about areas that are highly populated or Afghan concentrated, for example, Peshawar. So if the Peshawar universities in Peshawar, they offer only one seat to Afghan refugees, how are they going to get access to education?
Essentially, I think this applies to public sector universities.
Yes.
It does not apply to private sector universities where anybody with a legal resident status in Pakistan can pay the fee and enroll. I don't think they discriminate.
Yes, it is for the obviously public sector
Correct.
universities.
Again, 2 points here. One is in the past, when the geopolitical situation was different, even after the end of the Cold War, there were certain institutions in this country which were exclusively serving the Afghan refugees.
Okay.
And Pakistanis were not entitled to the services offered by them.
Fair enough.
Right? Which I think was totally justified and valid because they were in a particular socio-economic political condition and a customized solution was needed for them, which was being provided. Now that the attention of the world has shifted elsewhere, any government would say, and I'm not endorsing it, but I'm just echoing what you would hear, is that the primary responsibility of a public sector is towards its own citizens, primarily.
Okay.
And I'm sure there are many Pakistani students who go without a university education because maybe they didn't score well enough in their entry-level examinations or can't afford.
Fair enough.
So primarily the government has to take care, any government has to take care of its own people.
Okay.
Except maybe some countries who have signed on the Convention on the Rights of Refugees, and they provide slightly.
And has Pakistan?
No,
signed?
Pakistan is not a signatory.
Okay, Pakistan is not.
Pakistan is not a signatory.
Fair
It has come up many times. UNHCR has raised it. It's become like a recurrent event. Them raising it in the executive board every year, and every year Pakistan has been not been signing this convention.
So, Usman sir, this brings us to one point again. I think all of these questions can be answered, all of these issues can be resolved by doing one thing, and that one thing would be coming up with some sort of categorization. You're better aware of the fact that since 1979, the people who came in 1979 and who are still living in Pakistan, there hasn't been any categorization. For example, businessmen, students, ABs, card A, card B, card C. It's just one wholesale thing that they are all refugees. I think we have examples in different parts of the world, even the countries who are not immigrant friendly, like you talked about UAE or for that matter, they come up with certain categorization. Right. I was reading somewhere that in recent Ukraine-Russia war, UAE ended up offering visas to Ukrainians because they were smart enough to understand that they are going to bring some money.
Correct.
They are going to
or
bring
skills.
Why Pakistan? There is another question from Muhammadullah Zadran, and he also comes up with this question, that why Pakistan has failed to look beyond two things in Afghan. One is terrorism and the other is refugees. Why not look at the money that they are bringing? You talked about that they have a big impact. You already mentioned it. So why Pakistan has not able to categorize them on the basis of certain merits? There could have been cards A, B, C. There could have been certain points that should have been granted, and then they might be eligible for the immigration.
No, again, let's not mix up refugees with immigrants.
Okay.
Right. So I am not aware of Pakistan's immigration policy which would encourage, for example, investor as an immigrant or highly skilled person as immigrant. I'm not aware that Pakistan has a policy. Other countries do, like UAE does, for example.
Okay.
They have a point system. All countries have a point system usually. So if you are bringing in clean money, you are an investor, you are granted one type of visa. You are bringing in some high level of skill which is found useful for the economy of that country, and you are granted an immigrant or at least a permanent residence or work visa. I'm not aware of such a policy or a law in Pakistan. And what Zadran Saab says is absolutely right. If any policy maker is listening to me or to this program, I would humbly request them to consider this, primarily for Afghans, because they have no cultural alienation.
Exactly.
They don't find any problem adjusting with us, and we don't have any problem.
The first place they look up to is Pakistan.
As a matter of fact, the politically induced tensions aside, I haven't come across a single Afghan in my life who has some inherent bias against a common Pakistani. I haven't. Not here, not on the other side of the
You have more experience, but I've also worked with Afghans, and I can absolutely vouchsafe for the fact.
Which may not be the case with certain other neighbors we have.
True.
Right?
True.
If there is not outright hatred, there is at least a degree of suspicion or at least disdain in certain other neighbors. I haven't come across that in Afghanistan.
Yes.
Same, I believe, is true for a common Pakistani.
True.
Yeah, except for the grossly brainwashed or misled people.
Yes.
For example, you often hear exaggerated claims about Afghans being involved in street crime.
True.
I had the opportunity of looking at some statistics, and it's in proportion to the Afghan registered at least population in this city, for example. It's way less
True.
than bona fide Pakistani citizens, correct? So I think what Zadran Saab says is a very valid and very sensible thing to say, and it's not only about money. It's money is less important than the skills they bring in, the entrepreneurship that they bring in.
True.
Certain parts of my homeland, Balochistan, were completely barren, believe me, or people grew very, very low value crops before the refugees came in. Now those areas are lush green, there are high value crops being grown, all thanks to the Afghan refugees. Yes, they introduced those crops.
Yes. And Usman Sahib, you also mentioned that, associating crime with Afghan refugees in Pakistan. There is an argument, and I saw the pen in it when one of my students came up with this question, and he suggested that when there is an educated, competent refugee, a pharmacist who has studied, who has left behind many Pakistanis in when it comes to studies and all, when you deny the opportunity to earn an honest living, they're living in Pakistan. So when they're living in Pakistan, if you deny them an opportunity to earn an honest living, what choices are they left with in order to feed their kids? So how do you see that?
So one of the main concerns with the UN agencies dealing with migration or refugees is to prevent not only the skilled people but everybody from undesirable coping mechanisms when they are under economic stress.
Okay.
Which would include, for example, resorting to crime,
Okay.
Unregulated and dangerous efforts at migrating to Europe,
True. Fine.
or getting into the hands of the terrorist gangs under one name or the other, right? So I think it will serve Pakistan the best if we become a little creative, a little more humane towards the Afghans, not only from the point of view of their existing and potential contribution to our economy and society, but also to prevent the whole region from becoming a spawning ground for undesirable coping mechanisms that I just enumerated to you.
Wonderfully put. Usman Sahib, are you aware of any intentions on the part of Pakistani government, state, or the people who are at the helms of affairs that they at least thought of, granting nationality to Afghans, at least those who are here now for 3 or 4 decades or 5 decades?
I think there are deep anxieties related to that in this country.
Okay.
Some of them are related to our internal demographic anxieties in certain provinces. So a demographic disbalance is a fear that looms over the heads of many people in this country. So I don't think the conditions are conducive to even consider that possibility.
Okay.
What can in the interim be done is to slightly liberalize the registration, the visa or the work permit regime that exists in this country. I think granting nationality on the basis of being born here, being educated, etc. is a
far-fetched idea.
Yes,
Okay, for now, yes.
And it's not only up to the government, I think. I do not see any widespread realization even among the civil society or the private sector of this country or the academia or the media which would look at this issue with a humane and more so pragmatic way.
That was the purpose of
yes.
having you here, inviting you here.
Absolutely. I'm grateful that you initiated this topic from this channel because I'm hoping that more such discussions happen. People start reflecting on this beyond the stereotypes of terrorist, beyond the stereotype of misogynist, beyond the stereotype of outsider, the other, and look at the grow up,
Yes.
be mature, and look at it from its utility.
Utility. That's exactly the
Yeah.
point I wanted you to
Yes.
raise. Even if we talk about Pakistan,
Yes.
and we are talking here, and people might assume that we are having a favorable outlook towards Afghan. I think what you are putting, what I'm trying to suggest is that this is in the longer run, in the benefit of Pakistan itself in terms of economy.
Precisely. Not only is that, as I said, there is a benefit to rethinking and fixing the immigration, work permit, visa regime. Also look at the cost of inaction.
Okay.
If we don't, as you said, these people have to survive somehow,
Exactly.
right? For instance, let me give you a concrete example from the other day from E11 sector. So my cousin lives there, and there is 2 Afghan boys, grown up men almost,
Okay.
able-bodied,
Fair.
very well behaved, and they are involved in the most menial job, which is garbage collection, right? So they came to say goodbye because they are being evicted from the informal settlement they live in,
Okay.
etc.
Okay.
So couldn't help myself, but and I told my cousin to do some back of the envelope calculation. So roughly each of those boys, from collection of fee from each household plus segregating the trash, etc., they earn no less than 100,000 rupees a month, each of them. When my cousin asked them where they'll go to, and they said, to Kunduz. Do you know where Kunduz is? No, sir. Where were you born? Here. Where were your parents born? Here in Islamabad. Who came here from Kunduz? My grandfather. How old was he then? 12 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Now, I happen to know where Kunduz is, and I worked there. I'm presently involved in a project in Kunduz. There is nothing that these boys can do once they go back. There is nothing.
Exactly.
And that will put some pressure on the Afghan economy and the social fabric. And for these people, there is no attachment to Kunduz. They don't know nothing.
That's the point. That's
Yeah,
the point.
they have no friends there.
That's the point. So
Yes.
that brings us to
Yes.
what Zia wrote a couplet in Pashto. I translated it. He said that migration may last for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, but life lasts for 40.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
So when you are living in a country for 40 years, 50 years, he says it's not migration, it's life.
Right.
And how can a person just abandon one's life?
I totally empathize with Zia's sentiment, but I have to think a little rationally as well.
Please, that's pretty
So
emotional. Yes.
my fear is deeper.
Okay.
My fear is if these boys go back to Kunduz or Takhar or to Dashti Archi or anywhere in that area, and there's nothing there for them to do. They are able-bodied men,
Yes.
full of testosterone. They have they've been exposed to a productive, vibrant economy like this
Exactly.
one. If they're sitting idle there, if there is any miscreant coming in, offering them like a paltry amount
True.
and a gun
True.
and a supply of ammunition,
True.
you can look at the kind of bomb.
Havoc, destruction that
Yes.
can be caused. True.
Yes, and that will destabilize the whole region, and all our vision about regional integration and economic stability and growth, they will be shattered.
Absolutely.
So, thinking very pragmatically, I would say, first thing, and I'm dreaming here, first of all, we must act pragmatically and recognize the existing and the potential of contribution to the Afghans, to our society and economy. And also think about, for instance, right now our Prime Minister is visiting Dushanbe in Tajikistan.
Yes.
We can not have a cheaper, a less costly option of integrating Pakistani, Tajik and Uzbek economies without Afghanistan being involved in
True.
it.
Agreed.
And I think until the political issues of recognition or otherwise of the de facto authorities there undergoes a change, And there is simultaneously change on their part about the rights of women, for example, the rights to education, and their harsh.
This is a big concern. You just mentioned.
Absolutely.
I might
It's a
forget.
protection
I might
concern.
forget. Many families were living in Pakistan. Even when I was, surveying and I was interviewing these people, they suggested that one fear when you are sending us back, the man said, we do not fear for ourselves that much, but in Pakistan, my sisters,
Precisely.
my wife,
Daughters.
they're studying, they're somehow finding education.
Yes.
You're sending us back, we fear for them. So on human grounds, I mean, this gets us emotional, and when we talk on pragmatic grounds, this somehow leads us to what you have just pointed out. In both cases, whether on
Sure.
humanitarian ground or on pragmatic ground, I think this is not in our favor.
No, not at all. In fact, until that changes, and I am optimist that that will change. This cannot be sustained forever. It has to change either through a peaceful manner or through some sort of strife. And as I said, pushing all these able-bodied young men into areas where there are very little opportunities for sustainable livelihoods
Exactly.
is basically a ticking time bomb.
It is.
See, so this cannot continue forever, and whenever that happens, we need friends there. We will be basically very naive if we turn who are our existing and potential friends into antagonists for no reason.
So, to all my Afghan friends listening here, the questions that you put and the way Usman Saab is answering, whatever your concerns are, I mean, the people who understand, they're there with them. For example, Usman Saab, this was the concern. One of the Afghan, very educated from. He had his MPhil from Qaid-e-Azam University, right now serving in Afghanistan. He sent a message that these 3 or 4 million people, I mean, we have a figure of 3 at least, they can be your ambassadors.
Yes.
The way you said that we
Yes.
need friends there.
Look,
He said that.
you walk in the streets of Kabul
Yes.
or Kunduz and even far-fetched areas, like there's a place called Lalama. It's a few hours from anywhere in the world, and population is all Uzbek in the northeast. The second language they speak is not Dari, it's Urdu.
Oh my God. Oh.
Right? Everybody is a fan of Shahid Afridi.
Yes.
Right? So they are your goodwill ambassadors.
They can be.
So they are.
They are.
Unless you
They
turn
are-
them into
they are-
your,
yeah,
unless you kill
exactly.
that goodwill
Exactly.
by harsh actions, which again, as I said, make no pragmatic sense either.
Absolutely. Usman Saab, Zadran comes up with another suggestion as well. He says that, I do not know whether you're familiar with it. I tried to research when he said that, but I couldn't really find much factual data on it. He says that there is some card, granting by Chinese to the GB people who are living near the border. They pay some meager amount. The people who are living on the Khunjrab Pass areas
Right.
and all that, and China allows them to travel to China, and they allowed them to work permit for a year and so. And he suggests that why can't Pakistan do the same with regard to the Afghans making the process of entry and exit into Pakistan and Afghanistan rather easier like this.
Actually, I think Chinese learnt it from us.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Yeah. So certain parts, border areas, people are given what is called a rahdari. And in the past, it was highly decentralized. The district administration would issue it. And you could go into Afghanistan and come back and vice versa. For business, for trade, or for social engagements. Also, with Iranian border, certain areas had that privilege.
Okay.
Because of the heightened security tensions, this practice is less common now. But absolutely, we have a precedent which must be expanded, as Adran Saab suggested.
Okay. Usman Saab, now when we talk about this very idea, when I was, going through certain data, one thing that clicked me is that, and I think we are going to somehow broaden the horizon for this question. Are immigrants, or for that matter refugees, are they somehow bargaining chips in political economy? Recent happenings, if you relate, I think with regard to even Turkey, Syria, and all. If you can just give us a broader answer to this.
Unfortunately, a patently humanitarian issue is often used as a bargaining chip, unfortunately, which is obvious in many situations in the world.
Okay.
And the most chronic among them is the Palestinian refugees issue, which have been used as bargaining chips. And if you look at the status of, for example, the Palestinian refugees across various countries where they've been living for more than half a century now, that tells you how that hosting country views them and what utility they have in mind for them as useful citizens or as bargaining chips in the regional political economy. So that's an unfortunate reality, which is absolutely against the UN principles and the humanitarian principles.
Fair enough. From my personal observation, Usman sir, what I've noticed is that there are some Afghans in Pakistan who have those big mansions there. They are granted Pakistan citizenship.
Yes.
Is there a class issue to it?
There is a class issue to it, and it's not entirely related to the amount of wealth you have.
Okay.
It's also related to the kind of social capital you have with the power structure in this country.
Okay.
Right? So there are...
So the term arbitrary again applies?
Yes.
Fair enough. I think we are moving towards the end, and I want to, we talked about pragmatics and all, but something that really hurts me as well. Somebody whose father came at the age of 7, and now his father is 53. You send them back. What would he do in Afghanistan?
That's my deepest fear. As I told you, I'm doing this program in Kunduz, which has with all the constraints around the development funding around the world, especially the latest kick given by the closure of USAID. Under that program, in only 4 districts of Northeast, we do not have absorbing capacity for more than 4,500 small level, micro level livelihoods. Imagine if there are a million people and half of them are able-bodied working age people, and say even half of that, a quarter of those, they are men. What will they do there?
That's the question.
Yes.
Sponsor, moving towards the end, I would like you to, based on your experience, you worked around the globe, I would like you to address directly 3 stakeholders. The Afghan refugees in Pakistan, you know their concerns, you know their resentment. The people who are actually in Pakistan, the Pakistani people who are making decisions, and the people who are not actually making decisions but they carry certain biases, as you talked about. These 3 stakeholders, your messages for all 3 of them.
Oh, thank you. Look, in my meager capacity,
Yes, please.
as just a common citizen of Pakistan, and not representing any organized body, right?
True.
As an individual, for my Afghan brothers and sisters, I would say keep your expectations at a realistic level,
Very important.
right? So that there is less frustration. That's my humble request to them.
Yeah. They tend to become emotional,
with all
yes.
my sympathy towards them, and my heart goes out to the people among them who are suffering, especially the women folk. So my humble request would be to keep your expectations at a realistic level on what's achievable,
Okay.
right?
Fair enough.
And be more lawful than a Pakistani is expected to, frankly, because definitely you are more vulnerable.
True.
Secondly, to my Pakistani brothers and sisters who are part of the common citizenry of this country, do not get carried away by xenophobic, arbitrarily thrown so-called pseudo facts. Always refer to real statistics if you can take the trouble. and you will see that there is no point in demonizing Afghans, men, women, and I'll not limit it to Afghans. There are hundreds of Somali refugees in this city.
There are.
You don't see any resentment against them.
Against them.
I would say that our Afghan brothers and sisters with whom we have more common than we have with our Somali brothers and sisters or Sudanese or others.
True.
To understand, to empathize with them.
True.
Put yourselves in their shoes. To the decision makers, I am humbly requesting that obviously policies are not made according to the sentiments
Yes.
and emotions, but pragmatism and maintaining your normative moral position on the global stages makes perfect pragmatic sense as well. So from an economic perspective, social perspective, and as our aspiration to be proud Pakistanis on the global stage, we must look at this matter in a humane and a pragmatic manner.
Usman sir, thank you so very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for initiating
an
this
enlightening discussion. I've learned a lot from you, and as always, you have opened vistas of avenues to be explored, and we are going to definitely look up to you in future as well, and we'll take your expert opinions. Thank you so very much.
It's been a pleasure, sir.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so very much. Thank you. That's it from the program, The All-Rounder. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it brought learning. The actual purpose was to bring some insights from somebody who knows the issue, some pragmatic answers to the questions of our Afghan brothers and sisters. I'll meet you next Thursday. Till then, goodbye. Take care. Khuda Hafiz.